Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're doing the first league team breakdown video where I'm going to be going through every single team in the Premier League, telling you some information about how they're doing in real life, how to play them on FIFA, key players in their squad, young players to keep an eye on, and a signing suggestion for a weak point in their squad. I'm going to try and keep it under 1 minute for every single team so we can blast through the entire league. If you decide to do one of the saves based on this video, feel free to press like or subscribe, all the normal stuff that YouTubers tell you to do. Anyway, we're going to be working through the league in alphabetical order, so of course that means starting with Arsenal. Arsenal are the only team in the Big Six without a super coach. They're focusing more on developing a young team that can develop in tandem so they all reach their peaks at the same time. Arsenal are basically in rebuild mode already, and part of the strategy is developing a star manager. I don't know if Arteta will actually make it, but they've got a high potential team, they've got a good budget, and they've got some big name players in their squad already. Arsenal look to be one of the more fun teams to take over on FIFA 22. If you can get Aubameyang firing like he will do for most people on FIFA, you could be able to get the top 4 in your first season, with the title your second season aim. The key players for the Arsenal squad, of course, Aubameyang and Thomas Partey. They're both going to be crucial if you do want to try and get into the top 4. Developing young players, Saka, Smith Rowe and Odegaard, all also very important for the Arsenal squad. But there is a big weakness at striker. If Aubameyang can't do it, you should probably sign one of Dusan Vlahovic, Darwin Nunez or Alexander Isak to fill the gap. Steven Gerrard has just taken over Aston Villa and he is implementing his own style of football. He's won his first 2 games, he's got a focus on building through the middle. Gerrard's going to want to keep this momentum going. They play a low possession narrow 4-3-3, which is perfect for FIFA, and they have all the players in the squad to do this. Cash and Young both have very good engines at wingback, and they've got wingers who can cut inside to finish, as well as be good on the press. Europe is the eventual aim for Aston Villa, but I'm sure they'll settle for top half in the first season. Their 3 key players are Liam Bailey, Ollie Watkins, and Emi Buendia, 2 of which they signed in the last summer. They've got young players Jacob Ramsey and Ezri Konsa, both with 84 potential, that if you develop them right can be Premier League title winning players. If you want to try and strengthen the squad, I'd go for centre midfield. Oxlade-Chamberlain, Glenn Kamara from Rangers or Lewis Cook are all good options for this position. Heading back to London, Brentford are one of the biggest supporters of using stats to measure performance. The strategy seems to be working for them. With every signing analysed to make sure they get good value, they've got a young squad with high potential on low wages. This gives them the perfect starting point for a good career mode, and this is only going to be improved even more when they get their real stadium added to the game in a few months' time. The team has struggled with its defence recently, but has performed well when attacking, so you know the areas you'll need to strengthen later on. Ivan Toney is one of their key players, as is Christopher Ayer, a centre-back and a striker, giving them a good balance at both ends of the pitch. In terms of young players, pretty much the entire squad, but in particular Josh Da Silva, Janelt and Onyeka all have 81 potential, which is good enough to be decent in the Premier League. A signing suggestion would be centre-back. They've got Joe Worrell, who they've looked at in real life, Victor Nelson, who would be a good Danish player, they do have a good Danish core in their squad, and Anel Adman-Hodzik, who again they've looked at in real life. Going further south, manager Graham Potter's attractive style of football has earned a lot of fans for Brighton, but he might be a victim of his own success. They finished 10th last season, which led to higher expectations, but now fans are turning on the manager despite being 8th in the league. 8 games without a win means the squad's early season performances are being cancelled out, and with the demanding fans, underrated FIFA players and a small budget, Brighton are actually a really good chance to rebuild a team on FIFA 22. Can you improve their passing style, or will you switch it up and implement a new brand of football on the south coast? Well, the players you're going to want to include either way are their 2 strikers, Leandro Trossard and Neil Maupay, both with 77 overall. But you're also going to want to develop Kurikela, their left wing back, at 87 potential, and Tariq Lamptey with 84 potential on the other side. One area that definitely needs strengthening for Brighton is central midfield. I've suggested Tom Davis, Lewis Travis and Nicholas Dorsch to fill this gap. Before the start of the season, no one would have expected an ageing New Zealand international and an Ivorian left-back to be one of the most effective strike partnerships in the Premier League, but that's exactly what's happening at Burnley. Playing behind the target man in Burnley's traditional low-block 4-4-1-1 formation, Maxwell Cornet is the ideal pressing forward to help Burnley win the ball back up the pitch very high. This partnership needs to be a key part of their latest Premier League survival bid, and I'm sure they'll be key for your FIFA 22 save. I've put Maxwell Cornet as one of the key players of the squad, but you're also going to be relying on Nick Pope, who's of course a very good goalkeeper in the Premier League. You're going to need to develop Dwight McNeil with 83 potential and Nathan Collins with 82 potential because you haven't really got too much potential outside of these two. I've suggested a central midfielder or a right midfielder to be one of your first signings, with again Lewis Cook, Callum Styles and Jan Karamo being big options for Burnley. With a very different style of football compared to Burnley, Thomas Tuchel's wing-back focused formation has brought Chelsea back to being title challengers. Despite having 15 players unavailable in some matches, including both Lukaku and Werner, the strength and versatility of other players in the squad have managed to carry them through. In the 3-4-2-1 formation that Tuchel likes to play, Chelsea are well equipped to challenge for silverware both in real life and in FIFA 22, and all the rivals know it. Of course, their key players, N'Golo Kante at 90 overall and Romelu Lukaku at 88 overall, are two of the best players in the entire league. But if you can develop their young players, including Kai Havertz and Mason Mount, who have 92 and 89 potential respectively, you're going to have an even better squad. The only potential issue with Chelsea is that the centre-backs are either old or have very short contracts, so if you want to replace Rudiger and Thiago Silva, go for one of Koundé, De Ligt or Mukiele, my three options for you to pick at centre-back. I don't think anyone expected FIFA legend Patrick Vieira to start off as well as he did with Crystal Palace. Although they're going through a tough spot at the moment, the free-flowing football based around good dribblers, good pace, good passing will translate well to how almost every career mode player sets up. As is the case in real life as well, Gallagher and Zaha are the obvious standouts for being the best players in the squad on FIFA, but almost everyone in the squad is fun to use. They don't have the best budget, but you should be focusing on bringing through youth players and you start as Palace anyway, especially if you're trying to keep it realistic. Their key players, as I mentioned, are Zaha and Gallagher, but of course Gallagher is on loan from Chelsea. Their best young talent include Guehi, Olise and Eze, who all have potential over 83, which is good enough to be Europa League level player. If you're going to strengthen one area, you'd probably go for central midfielder or central defensive midfielder, where I'm going to suggest Mathieu Cafaro and Jan Brice Eteki as two potential options for Crystal Palace to sign. Rafa's Everton showed so much promise, but now the fans are fully against the Everton board. A downward spiral since their great start a couple of seasons ago, and the pressure on everyone at the club is massive. You can attribute a decent amount of their fall to a huge injury crisis, but this was only magnified by the board's failure to get a good amount of depth in the squad. A lack of creativity due to Sigurdsson and Rodriguez leaving the club for different reasons means there's a huge need for a playmaker who can win games by themselves that Everton just don't have. Their key players are both good enough for the level that Everton want to get to in Calvert-Lewin and Alan, but of course Richarlison is a good young player with 87 potential, and Ben Godfrey can get up to 85 as well. Luckily in real life they have been linked with some good attacking midfielders. They're going to try and get a return to Ross Barkley maybe, Charles de Ketelaere and Aaron Ramsey of course at Juventus, all potential options for that playmaking position. Bielsa is one of the most unique managers in football at the moment. His murder ball training style has given Leeds a high press and quick transition based tactic which the entire squad is built around. Leeds have shown they can beat the likes of Man City when they play to their best, but with this year's top scorer Patrick Bamford only getting one goal in the 5 games he's managed to play in, there's definitely room for improvement at Leeds. It's difficult to play like Bielsa on FIFA, but if there's any club you can do it with, it's Leeds. As I mentioned before, one of their key players is Patrick Bamford, but Calvin Phillips has been the real standout for them in real life this season. Young players Pascal Struijk and Ilan Meisler, both really good as well with high potential, especially Meisler the goalkeeper. If you're looking to strengthen their squad, go for central midfield where I've got Lewis Cook yet again and John Swift, two players they've been linked with in real life, or in Lewis Cook's case, a Leeds Academy graduate. After narrowly missing out on the top 4 by just a single point last season, Leicester went into 2021 full of hope. However, after conceding set-piece goal after set-piece goal, the club has found themselves level with Brighton and behind Wolves in the battle for the Europa League. As the manager Brendan Rodgers demands more aggression, more concentration and more physicality to their game, Leicester are playing catch-up for the rest of the season. Luckily for you, in FIFA their squad is full of all 3 of those, with at least one good player in every position and some cases 2 or 3. A big budget to improve the squad and big potential throughout means they're only a couple of players away from title fights on FIFA. Top 4 should be the initial goal, with a second Premier League title being the goal in 2023 if you recruit well. Key players Jamie Vardy, Yuri Telemans and Wilfred Ndidi are all likely to feature in your squads pretty heavily, and young players Wesley Fofana with 86 potential and Boubakary Soumaré with 85 potential should be key if you're going to try and develop Leicester to get to that title. If you need to strengthen anywhere, it's probably centre-back, and I'd recommend looking at Evan Ndika and Odilon Kusunu, who are both very good, strong French centre-backs. As is tradition in Liverpool, there is a new Fab Four that's making its way around the country. Mane, Salah, Jota and Firmino are one of the best attacks the Premier League has ever seen. The versatility, pace and skill they show is absolutely a title-level combination, with the squad set up to play exactly how Klopp's traditional gegenpress goes with good stamina, aggression and pace. There is a lot of this already in the squad. Any signings that you make should focus on this and implement all of these skills into any tactics you create. They've got enough players to press constantly and you should absolutely be doing that. Key players Salah and Mane of course, but two young players to keep an eye out for include Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones, who have 87 and 86 potential. A signing suggestion for me would be to probably in season 2, you don't have to do it the first season, sign someone like Bellingham or Zakaria, someone to shore up that midfield and make sure you're solid on the counter-attack. In his Manchester City squad, Pep has made a team that, despite being full of superstars, works better as a collective than as individuals. The style of play needs a specific type of player to work, but Man City's squad is already full of them. Everyone can pass, everyone can keep the ball, everyone can attack, everyone can defend. This squad has at least one world-class player in every single position. It has a massive budget and massive potential, so it's going to be one of the easiest, but also one of the most fun saves on the game. It's actually hard to find anywhere to improve, so I'll leave that fully up to you. But of course, keep an eye out for someone like Haaland or Kane becoming available. Key players, of course, Kevin De Bruyne, Ruben Diaz and Rodri, all very important at both the attack and defence, getting the ball from defence to your attack. And of course, keep an eye out for Phil Foden, as I'm sure you know, Ferran Torres and maybe even Kike, who needs a little bit more developing than the other two. With Oli no longer at the wheel, Ralf Rangnick has a lot to do with the Red Devils to get them back to title contention. In FIFA, their squad is bursting with meta players, but they've struggled to get them working in real life. Thankfully for you, almost every player in their squad is set to improve a bit more. You've got £150 million in the budget, and you have tons of potential flooding through their squad. Like in real life, the real weakness is at central defensive midfielder, but you'll also probably want some new defenders if you're going to play Rangnick ball fully effectively. A big part of United is their love of youth players, so make sure you also fund your youth academy properly to keep that streak of over 4,000 games with an academy player in your matchday squad going. Some key players, of course, Bruno Fernandes, Paul Pogba and Cristiano Ronaldo, they'd be key players in any squad in the world. But the real standouts in the squad are their young players Mason Greenwood and Jadon Sancho, who both have over 90 potential, which is absolute world class. Some signing suggestions, as I mentioned, central defensive midfield is a weakness, so look at Nicolo Barella, João Palhinha and Declan Rice, who they've all been linked with in real life. There's not a lot to say about Newcastle that hasn't already been said. I've got a full video on them if you check that card that's at the top of the screen right now, but massive transfers have been linked with the North East. But for players to want to join them, they'll need to get away from the relegation zone pretty quickly. Players like Ousmane Dembele, who they've been linked with in real life, will not want to potentially be playing a cold away game against Plymouth next season. So focusing on the squad you begin with, you should only really strengthen in January if you want to keep it a little bit tougher. Your key players in Alan Saint-Maximin and Callum Wilson are both good enough to keep you in the league, and if you develop Santiago Muñoz and Joe Willock again, they're going to be good enough no matter who you sign to be in your squad. Signing suggestions in January: pretty much every position. Sign players who are between 78 and 83 if you want to keep it a little bit tougher. Players like Brozovic, Lingard, Barkley, Trippier, Tarkowski and Harry Winks have all been linked with Newcastle over the past few weeks. So keep a look at those, see if they'd fit in your squad, and maybe consider signing one of them. Norwich City are the yo-yo club of the Premier League, and the Canaries are looking set for the drop again. They have the worst team and the smallest budget, so Norwich really are a tough challenge, and it's no surprise they find themselves at the bottom of the league. Since they've changed their manager from Farke to Smith, performances have improved, and they focus more on being hard to beat. The end goal of his transformation is to start winning the ball high up the pitch in an almost Klopp-like fashion, so this should also be the end goal of your career mode save. If you can match their biggest rivals, Ipswich, by winning the Europa League, you'll have finally made Norwich the biggest team in that part of England. However, you should really only be focusing on the first season, where the goal is simply to survive, so you can have a back-to-back season in the Premier League for the first time since 2013. To do this, you'll be relying on their key players Timo Pukki, Tim Krul and Ozcan Kabak, who are all between 76 and 77 overall. However, make sure you're also developing Max Aarons with 83 potential and Todd Cantwell with 82 potential, because I do think they'd be more than effective if you can get them up to that potential. Some suggestions to sign would be a new goalkeeper because Tim Krul is very old, Nikita Hykin's been linked in real life, Brice Samba's probably one of the better goalkeepers in the championship, and Etienne Green has a lot more potential than either of those two, so try signing one of those if you're looking for a new goalkeeper. Depending who you ask, Southampton will represent one of two things. They're either a pushover feeder club for all the big teams in the league, or they're a proud club who relies on its strong youth academy. There is a link between the two views, with the youth academy being one of the reasons Southampton can compete in the league without spending massive fees. A lot of these players get sold on for the massive fees, so it is keeping Southampton alive in a way. Last season, Southampton conceded the second most goals, so their pragmatic manager Hasenhüttl strengthened their defence. They lost Danny Ings to Villa, so they splashed on a championship hotshot in Adam Armstrong. Southampton won't spend big, but they spend well, and with only £27 million in their budget, you'll have to do the same if you want to try and bring the Saints back to European football. You'll be relying on James Ward-Prowse, Che Adams and Stuart Armstrong to try and get you back up the league, but young players Mohamed Salisu and Tino Livramento are both going to be key if you can get them up to their potentials, because you'll be able to either sell them for a huge amount or be able to rely on them to get you up the league. If you want to strengthen the squad, go for wingers. Ritsu Dewan, Jonathan Burkhart and Kangin Lee have all been linked in real life and I think would be pretty realistic signings. Back to London, and it's another team that are underperforming in Tottenham. Spurs have won just 6 of their first 12, losing 5 and drawing the other game. Things have got better since appointing Conte, beating Brentford and Leeds, but Harry Kane is still struggling in front of goal since his move to Man City broke down in the summer. They now play a 3-4-2-1 formation, and you'll have to get the most out of Son's peak years, try and rejuvenate Kane, while also developing players like Ndombele and Reguilon, while also putting up with expectations of finishing in the top 4. It's a much harder save than it sounds, but I do recommend you give it a go. You have enough budget to sign one superstar with £65 million waiting for you, but you've also got a few gaps in the squad to fill. It's not much of a rebuild save, it's more of a develop what you have, because they do have quite a lot of good young talent in their team already. Key players, of course, Son and Kane and Lloris, big 3 names in the Premier League for a couple of seasons now, but their young players Brian Hill and Dane Scala are the ones that you really should look out for. Because of the balance in their squad, I'll leave the signings up to you, but I'd recommend going for at least some good young players, maybe a backup striker if you do get rid of Harry Kane. Just like most people do in their FIFA saves, Watford are relying very heavily on 3 players to keep them in the league. With Dennis, King and Sarr all having 5 or more goals, which is more than the likes of Bruno Fernandes, Ronaldo, Ivan Toney or Firmino, Ranieri isn't relying on counter-attack luck anymore. Instead, Watford are a team of cheap players who can compete with anyone in the league. If you can phase in João Pedro to replace Josh King, you'll have a front 3 that's almost designed to be effective on FIFA, while also having potential to get even better. Watford are an underrated choice for career mode saves, but I highly recommend you give them a go. They do have budget to make some small improvements, but so many of their squad already have potential to be 80 plus that I think you should really focus on them first. The key players, of course, Dennis, King and Ismail Sarr, but Moussa Sissoko is also very important on FIFA. João Pedro has potential to be one of the better players in the entire squad, so do keep an eye out for him and give him as many minutes as you can. If you want to strengthen anywhere, it will be centre-back, where I recommend looking at Matteo Lovato, Sven Botman and Facundo Medina. Fellow London team West Ham United are one of the surprises of the season. The Hammers are currently sitting in Champions League place after 14 games. It's unlikely they'll find themselves in the top 4 at the end of the season, but Europa League is a real possibility. The biggest issue with West Ham is their squad depth, mainly them only having a single first team striker. They have money to buy more depth, but you'll need to make sure you get the best possible deal to stretch this limited fund as far as you can. European money will help if you can get them there, but it'll also be a hindrance with the extra games in Season 1. If you want to hear a bit more about West Ham, make sure to check the card for my full video on them above on the top of the screen. Key players Declan Rice, Thomas Sukic, and Kurt Zouma, of course, all big names on FIFA and in real life. Young players Nikola Vlasic, who they signed this season, and Issa Diop both have potential to be in the mid-80s, but Declan Rice and Thomas Sukic can both get a bit higher, so it depends on how you view their young players. Signing suggestion for me would be a new striker, of course. We've got Paul Onuachu, Rafael Leao, and Kevin Schade, who are all worth having a look at. The final team in this video, Wolverhampton Wanderers, are mainly known for their Portuguese signing preferences and have had a decent start despite being the second worst team for finishing in the league. Despite this, they have the third best defence, so they're on the same level at Liverpool at defending, but on the same level as Norwich at attacking. If you decide to do a Wolves saves, these are two of the things you'll need to do: sign Portuguese players and play attacking football. It sounds simple, after all Portugal have some of the best attackers in the world, but finding Premier League ready players from there is tough. With a decent budget, you can raid Porto, Sporting and Benfica for talent, while also focusing on British players via youth academy, as Wolves do in real life. Key players, of course, Ruben Neves, Raul Jimenez and Nelson Semedo are all good enough to play in the Premier League and deserve their spot in your first 11. Young players Trincao and Pedro Neto have potential to be better than anyone else in your squad, so make sure you're developing both of these Portuguese youngsters when you're playing as Wolves. Some signing suggestions would be to strengthen the left and right wing-back positions. People like Jed Spence, Diego Gonçalves and Diogo Dalot, all good options to play on both sides, so I recommend you sign at least one of them, even if it's just for backup. So that's a run through of every single team in the Premier League on FIFA 22. A little bit of information about them, their key player, a young player, and a signing suggestion for every team in the league. I've wanted to do a video like this for a while, but I was a bit scared that it's a bit too long. If you liked the video, make sure you press thumbs up, and thank you for watching this far if you did make it all the way to the end. The video took a long time. I put the whole script on my Discord, so make sure you go check that out if you prefer to read this kind of thing. But going through and making a signing suggestion for every single team did take me a lot of time, so seriously do consider subscribing if you like this kind of thing, and if you've got any suggestions for other leagues I could do this for, or if you want to do a little information box on your team, make sure to do it on my Discord or in the comments below. Thank you all for watching if you did make it this far, hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you in the next video very soon. Thank you and goodbye.